So welcome to another one of my nightmare puzzles. So what I did when I was feeling overly optimistic about my puzzling abilities was I actually ordered a series of puzzles that came in a bag where I knew the name of the puzzle and no other details. So this is a 1,000-piece Cobble Hill puzzle called Flower Market. I even Googled it and I could not find the image online. This means I have a 1,000-piece puzzle where I'm working on a table that, as you can see, is way too small with poor lighting, which you can also see in the video. I have no idea what the image is. Oh, and it's random cut. Random cut puzzles are much more difficult for me. I like to be able to see the shapes and work with the shapes. And random cut puzzles, I also have a lot of trouble seeing the border and being able to pull out that border and frame out the puzzle. And without being able to frame out the puzzle, it's much more difficult for me to go, oh yeah, this is what I'm going to work on next, or I should go over to this section. So I'm at this point just sort of like, what can I build? And you'll notice that I'm committing a giant speed puzzling faux pas right now, where the pieces are still in the bag, actually. I'm trying to use that side, that white section, to try to hold some of the pieces as I do it. But leaving pieces in the bag or the box, huge no-no in the actual speed puzzling community. It does slow you down quite a bit if you can't get a good overview of all the pieces that you're working with, which I clearly could not in this puzzle. So I was able to spot one little up corner and went ahead and built that. And then as I pulled out those pieces, noticed some similar looking pieces, and so pulled those out as well. One of the challenges is I knew the name of the image was Flower Market. Let me tell you what things I don't like doing. So Flower Market to me means it's going to be busy. There are going to be lots of bursts of color, lots of sort of colorful spots that I'm going to have to find. And generally that can be a really fast puzzle because then you can say, oh, all the pinks are here or all the reds are here. Pull out those pieces, put them together, stick them in the puzzle. But because I'm working without the image, I don't want to necessarily go down that route for my strategy. The reason is, basically, I could pull all the pink pieces and put them together, but they might not actually go together because there might be 5 pink flower spots somewhere in this puzzle. There might be 10. And given that it's a 1,000-piece puzzle, that's actually somewhat likely. It's likely that it's going to be big. There are going to be lots of small spots. And so not having the image is actually making this puzzle much more difficult. I do sometimes try to do puzzles without the image because I think it's good training in spotting different patterns and different blobs of color. This was not the puzzle to try that on though. So, we're now almost 2 hours in. I don't even have the top border done. As you can see, I'm occasionally taking breaks and moving on to other things just because, this puzzle is a nightmare. Slowly moving. This puzzle I have less commentary on because most of my commentary was this was not fun and I regret my choices. Okay, so I have moved on a little bit now, and I have started some of this darker section over to the left. You can actually see how poor the lighting is by both my shadow and the glare on the table. So this was before I set up my dedicated puzzling station, basically took over the dining room table and turned it into the puzzle table instead. And so I'm dealing with some less than ideal lighting. That actually really slowed me down. On this puzzle because there were lots of sections that were sort of just dark. And because of the glare, it was harder to see the individual parts of those pieces and sort of figure out how they went together. One of the things that you're seeing now is I've gotten the top border done, but I discovered the top border had a lot of trees right after it. And trees are pretty difficult to build. And so I am very much, too, at this point, just trying to get a sense of what this puzzle might look like. And so you're seeing that I'm building the border, even though it's not the most efficient use of my time, to just try to get a sense of where might some of these pieces go? How might they fit together? Are there certain blocks of color that I should be looking for? And you are seeing there are some certain blocks of color, right? Like I've gotten there's some darker pieces up in the upper left, there's some brighter pieces in the upper right. Oh, what a fun puzzle this was. The sarcasm might be apparent. I have been able to start to find some flower chunks by now. There's not really a strategy though, other than just try to build stuff and get pieces on the table. And again, I think that's really being driven by the space issues that I'm having in this puzzle. If I didn't have space issues, I would have flipped and spread out so that it would be much easier to see some of the different color patterns or some of the different pieces that I might be looking for. Instead, I'm having this just hunt through this collection of random pieces on the side and try to pull them onto the table where there is space, which is also materially slowing down my progress. Yes, one of the other challenges of not working with the image are things right side up. So generally, when you're puzzling, you can figure out if things are right side up pretty quickly, right? Like a sunset, the bright part's not going to be at the top of the puzzle. It's going to be generally in the middle of the puzzle. And so as you start to build the sky, you can figure out, okay, well, I know what a right side up cloud looks like, what a right side up sunset looks like. In this puzzle, I couldn't figure that out. And so I kept having to turn the pieces to say, well, this chunk of flowers, I think it's supposed to go like this, but maybe not. Maybe it's supposed to go the other way. And that also made it more difficult because it was harder to build around, because sometimes I would be repeatedly trying to get a piece to fit in where I thought pieces might connect. And it would turn out they just wouldn't connect that way, right? They would connect the other way and I would have had them upside down, which was also just frustrating to realize I'd spent 15 minutes trying to get something to work and I was on entirely the wrong track. Again, this sort of thing can be really valuable if you want to flex your skills in noticing patterns and noticing shapes. I wouldn't recommend doing it the way I'm doing it, which is a too small table and no image and a piece type I'm not good at. That turned out to be frustrating rather than sort of a good training opportunity. Absolutely beautiful puzzle though, if you can buy it with the box. It's a good one. I just wouldn't recommend it without the box. Stuff is very slowly starting to come together on this. So we are about 5.5 hours into this puzzle, and you're starting to see some shapes come together. So not nearly as quickly as I would have hoped as I was working on the puzzle, but definitely some stuff is starting to make a little bit more sense. So you're starting to see the same dark colors at the bottom. I'm starting to be able to build some of the trees at the top. What's nice about this phase of the puzzle for me is that I'm actually getting a lot of pieces just placed. And so that's making the space management a lot better. The more pieces I place, the more space I have to work with. And I'm able to sort of say, hey, I think there's going to be a dark colored piece or a pink piece or a grassy piece around here. Find those pieces and try to test them, because the areas I'm working with now are much, much smaller. So much easier. The problem is I'm still not really seeing what this puzzle is supposed to look like when it's done. So still going. There are some momentary pauses in here that are actually me going and getting water or snacks or tea. Um, this puzzle is taking a very long time. Um, you can see it's spread over multiple days. I thought it was going to be much faster than it actually turned out to be. So what I'm working on now is filling in this bottom, that's sort of generic brown spot. Um, I'm starting to guess that that's probably a road and there's probably a stand to the right, based on what looks like a sign and what looks like a roof. The good news is now I can just kind of fill things in. You'll notice on the bottom right, there's still a little bit of border that's not filled in with a little bit of stuff around it. That's partially because this is random cut, so it's really difficult for me to actually see what the border is. And so rather than force myself to spend a lot of time looking for those pieces, especially when I don't have enough space to see all the pieces with a good overview, I'm just moving on. The general rule of thumb is if you can't find the piece within a couple of seconds, move on. And I'm trying to do that here quite a bit. The glare is starting to pick up now. I've had to turn on the overhead lights. And because of that, you can actually see some of the random cutness of the puzzle towards the bottom right. It's making it definitely harder for me to do, especially because it's random cut and I can't really see the shapes. So we're just continuing to fill in wherever I can see here. There are some pieces towards the bottom of the puzzle too that I expect should go in the bottom of the puzzle somewhere, but haven't been able to exactly place them. The image is now starting to come together a little bit more, which is also helping to make things move faster. So I'm better able to figure out, okay, I think there's a bucket with some flowers on the bottom left. I think there might be some more flowers for show on the upper right. One of the challenges, though, is it's actually a pretty busy image. And it's not totally apparent from the video, but it's actually painted. And that makes it much harder to see shapes and see straight lines in the puzzle. So I'm slowing down a little bit too as I'm dealing with some of the harder to spot sections. So I've got more than 90 minutes left before I finish it. And as you can see, there's actually not a ton of puzzle pieces still out. It's just that they're tough pieces to actually find and place. Shadow is coming into play now too to make things just a little bit harder in the last couple minutes. So, in retrospect, had I had the image, what I probably would have started with would have been those on the right-hand side, those sort of bright white flower buckets. And then on the left-hand side, you see the sort of shelf pattern with the flowers at the end. I would have also looked for those. Then probably done the path, then probably this upper border with this dark patch in these trees. I ended up with not a terribly dissimilar strategy doing it without the image. The one big differentiator, though, is I had to build the border not having the image because I was just so confused what the puzzle was going to look like or what I should be looking for. One of the benefits actually is I'm working with a small table here, as I have just walked around the table and am working from the top now rather than reaching over. So starting to fill in those dark pieces on the upper left. It's a very pretty puzzle, actually. Just really did not enjoy doing it the way that I did it. In retrospect, should never have said, yeah, I'll do 1,000 pieces without an image on a small table. Sounds like a great plan. And here I am finishing up those few remaining dark pieces to finish up this puzzle. And here we go, finally done.